share. Okay, I think we're good to go. So nice to see you, and I'm so glad you're willing to do this with me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's really, really fun. So I will introduce all the players. So I'm Melissa McLeod, and I'm here at the Wool and the Floss in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, and with my partner in crime, Megan Holmes, at the Needlepoint Clubhouse in St. Louis. We are the Pointing It Out team, and I am so excited today because I have Alex Haines with us, who is a lifestyle blogger, a marketing consultant, and most importantly in our world, a huge needlepoint cheerleader, beginner advocate. I don't even know what to say, but I know that you have a very popular blog, which I also follow now and I'm subscribed to, and it's super fun. And the fact that I kept seeing needlepoint pop up, and I know your focus is kind of on millennials, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So for those of us in the business, or those of us that have stitched for a very long time, attracting new and young blood to this beloved industry of ours is so important. So I'll start by thanking you for that, and I'll probably end by thanking you for that.
Of course.
But yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself, like where are you currently, tell us your education, your family, like all the fun stuff.
Sure. So I currently live in Houston, Texas. Actually made my way here from Phoenix, Arizona, was born and raised there.
Okay.
And my grandparents lived in Houston, and I went to University of Texas at Austin. Met my now husband when I was a senior in college, and the rest is kind of history. I was going to be a sports broadcast major, but loved fashion at the same time. So people would always ask me, who's your outfit by? And kind of started the blog haphazardly there because my parents had read about blogging in 2011, 2012, 2013. And this was right when the wave was kind of beginning of the very first OG bloggers. And so I started my blog in my junior year of college.
And it was your parents' idea?
Excuse me?
It was your parents' idea?
It was, yeah.
I love that.
Like, you're a journalism major. You love to write. Like, you should marry them together. That's also can be kind of like a way to show potential employers, your writing skills. So yeah, that was kind of how it all, and then people of course were like encouraging me, friends and my sorority and stuff. So it's kind of like all a group effort, but
so great.
Yeah, so started the blog pretty much after I met Rick, my husband. Well, we dated for a while, but I graduated college, decided to change tracks from the sports broadcasting, moved to Houston, started working in PR at a small advertising agency here in town, and kept up with my blog, but really, here and there, but was also working. And then got recruited to another job. Didn't care for it, but here I am. And so I really kept up with the blog there because it was kind of a nice outlet. And long story short, I left that job, was looking for another job, decided to keep up with the blog even more. And the rest is history. I was fortunate enough to get some opportunities to go to New York Fashion Week. I got to go to Dubai with Kendra Scott. It was just kind of once in a lifetime type things that I couldn't say no to. My parents were like, you're young, do it. You can always go back to work. So here I am now. Gosh, I was trying to think about it before we got on here. It's like, feels like all a blur, but I have been blogging now for almost, longer, about 10 years, and then 9-10 years. And then I have been full-time for 5 or 6. So, just one of those things that I love writing. I love sharing things with people, and Adored by Alex, which is my blog name, is, just things that I adore, a place that people can kind of come and find things that I like, things that I'm sharing, and just like kind of honesty as well. So all that to be said, when COVID happened, that was where Needlepoint came into play, and it has just been so fun to meet so many new people, meet a completely new audience, and kind of share my journey as well. So I live here in Houston. You might have seen my golden doodle puppy, Sadie, 70-pound puppy. And my husband is Rick, and he owns a remodeling and renovation business here in Houston. And so if you follow me, you've probably seen that we did a flip house, and it's currently on the market, and we have people circling, so that's great. But that was kind of something as well that I'm now dabbling in and helping with his business and marketing, but also like kind of getting requests now too for me to come and help people make decisions and design stuff. So that's been just like kind of wild as well. So here we are.
You're gonna be like Nicole on do you know who I'm talking about? Oh, what is her name? She's on the HD channel.
Yes.
She's from Detroit. So you're going to be like that cute little Nicole.
And so many people obviously are like, you guys are going to be like Chip and Joanna, because my husband went to Baylor and we spend a lot of time in Waco. And I'm like, I mean, cool, but like, I'm not, he's the funny one. I'm not funny. So
that's great. Well, and so first of all, I just have to say, like, it's like, for some people, it's hard to believe that like what you're doing is a profession, but you work really hard at it from what I can tell. This is not just like something that like you think about once or twice a week and throw something out there.
Right.
And you have, at least on your Instagram page, I thought I saw 75,000 followers. Is that right?
So it's actually 43.
43?
So 43,000, but still. It's okay. And then I have a pretty big base of people that read my blog. A lot of people are like, I don't ever read blogs anymore, but apparently people do, and are searching stuff as well on Google. And so it's definitely one of those things. Common misconception is, oh, you try on clothes all day, or like, oh, you sleep in and you get up and have your coffee. And obviously Instagram is a highlight reel of your life, and personally, I have chosen to not share everything. So it may seem like, oh, wow, she's just hanging out, having her coffee at this time and playing with her dog at this time. But I don't share a lot of the things that are the nitty gritty.
And guess what? People think that when you own a needlepoint shop, you sit around and stitch all day.
Yes, I have heard that now that the LNS owners that I've talked to, especially here in Houston, they're like, they think that I'm just available all the time. And I'm like, I get it. It must be similar. But so I do not just sit around. Honestly, I was telling my husband the other day, I kind of wish I had a boss again. I left my job and started a business because I was like, I want to be my own boss. And now I'm like, I wish I had someone telling me like, you need to shut it down and stop working.
We have to remind ourselves of the whole work-life balance thing. And you're like, okay, I'll balance it as soon as I finish doing this.
Exactly. So it's definitely, totally fascinating, and not something my parents even still were like, they finally get it now. But for the longest time, they didn't. And of course, too, I went through a phase where I kind of took advantage of it and was like, oh, I'm going to watch TV, and then I'll write my blog post and go do stuff and go have lunch. But I've really, honed in on taking it seriously, that it is a business, and, it does not make money without me doing what I need to do, whether that's shooting photos on a certain day with my photographer, writing, accounts receivable, all that jazz. It's all there. And everyone that follows me just gets to see all the pretty parts, whether pre-COVID traveling, this flip house, stuff like that. So it's fun and I very much enjoy it. But, at the same time too, I try really hard to keep certain aspects compartmentalized. And I think that kind of separates me from a lot of other bloggers, because I don't share everything for everyone. And that's just, for me, I'm okay with that.
And I can respect that. I mean, it's a different platform, but as far as like needlepoint shop owners, like I rarely put anything personal on my Instagram page. Like you get a little personal things here and there on my Friday unboxings, because I'll just kind of warm up the audience with whatever's going on in my life, so to speak. But yeah, I try to avoid divisive things. I try to avoid things that aren't happy, because to me, when they're coming to visit my shop page, they're there because it should be someone's happy place. So
Right.
no one wants to hear about, whatever real life thing is going on that might not be happy. So
Exactly. And so it is a fine, happy medium line too, because obviously with everything and COVID and stuff, a lot of people have spent so much more time on Instagram and all these other outlets. And then, there's people that are like, you're not talking about X current event or whatever. And so kind of a fine line of everything. I think you get it too,
yeah.
but that's why I love Needlepoint even more, because everyone's just so happy to always talk about it and like be a cheerleader for one another. And it's just been such a great escape. So
let's talk about that. Tell me what even first intrigued you about stitching. Like, why did you even
sure. So I always kind of like knew that I wanted to try it. My grandmother we used to call her the Martha Stewart of Texas. She was that person that literally like had everything done to the nines for every holiday, like made our stockings, like she taught me to sew. We had every summer I'd come to visit, we'd always have like a different like event. Like one year we had a whole entire series where we learned about Native Americans, and we made our own teepee and like had the food and the culture, and that was just the type of person she was. And so I learned how to sew really young. I wanted a Lily Pulitzer dress really badly at a certain age, and it was expensive, and she was like, we're gonna make that dress for you. So all summer long I learned how to sew, and I made the dress by the end of the summer and had it to wear to my sleepaway camp little dance. So
I love her. I don't know her, and I love her.
Yes, she was amazing person. I called her Lala. And so she was always that like crafty person in the back of, always in the back, like, you can do it, you can make it better. My mom's the same way, like, oh, that's that price, we can do it better than that. And so always kind of had that craft gene of like doing stuff with my hands, cooking, baking. And gosh, I think so. Obviously, everything kind of COVID happened, but I had been thinking about it. I had kind of been seeing it pop up on my feed, on Instagram, like these younger needle pointers. I was like, oh, I want to do that, but I just don't have time. And then I don't really remember like how it all came together, but I remember seeing like all these whisperings about things happening in our world. And I was on Etsy and I just typed in needlepoint canvas and found a random designer that like had very simple, just large canvas that could be a pillow, and she sent it kitted and everything, and I literally got it like 3 days before everything shut down. So that was, then I'm like Googling like, okay, I know how to sew, but like these terms are very different from sewing terms, or just like something I'm not really clear on. So I was like Googling, and so many people I feel like have good resources, but then I also too felt like there weren't a lot of resources that were like layman's terms, breaking it down for beginners. And so I just kind of started, and then I kind of also got introduced like in a weird way to now one of my like closest friends, and we don't even know each other personally, Molly Yachno. We are the Needlepoint pen pals. That's what my husband calls us. But we are going to meet this year. We have made it official, but we like bonded over our dogs, and then she was a needle pointer and I would ask her questions, and we have become super close friends from all of this. And so yeah, that was just kind of how it started, which was crazy. And I became obsessed, and here we are now.
Well, and she may have told you that I hadn't met her. I never know how to say that when you've actually never met anyone.
Yeah.
Through Faison, who I had on the podcast.
Yes,
very
I watched
early
that
on.
one. Yes.
And I think, do you maybe know Faison from when you were growing up or something?
I do not. No, I know she's from Houston, and I I know of a couple people that know of her and stuff, but
Gotcha.
we've never personally met.
Yeah, so
So
I met Molly through her Zooms when my whole family was up at our lake house at the very beginning of shutdown. I was home by myself. So
yes.
I sadly don't join in anymore because my family's home and I'm barely ever home. So when I'm home, I really
Mhm.
actually need to
I
spend time
know.
with my family.
I get it.
But at that point in time, it was a total emotional lifesaver for me. And so that's how I met Molly. And she was desperate to have her dog's collars made in blue leather. So
Yeah.
that's how we kind of got together because she's like, no
Oh, I
place does
remember that
colored
story
leather.
well.
I'm like, I got you covered. I've got a great colored leather gal. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, and her dogs are so cute. And the one thing that I do share personally on my Instagram page from time to time is my dogs. So,
Yep.
you know,
I
us
mean,
dog
how can we not? It's a little too hard to not
for
share our
sure,
furry
for sure.
friends. So
So one of the things that and I kind of want to get back to your needlepoint journey, but you mentioned the terms, and of course, I had read a lot of your blog posts about needlepoint just over the last 6 months or so. I can't remember when you
mhm.
first started doing it. And one of my favorite things is your beginner needlepoint guide because you start out with like defining all the words because sometimes words that are specific to a certain thing become intimidating to
Yeah.
those who are joining in. So, and those of us that have been stitching since we were 7 years old, forget that some of these words don't mean a thing to anybody else, and we're talking a different language, and
Exactly.
it's intimidating. That makes people feel a little like off-putting, and they're hesitant to join because they don't know how to talk the talk,
Right.
and I think that's what Megan and I try to do here is educate people in a fun, lighthearted way so that they're comfortable stepping into the needlepointer world in whatever
Mhm.
way that's right for them. So that is one of my favorite things that you've done. So I can
Thank
tell like
you.
that was maybe something that put you off, but instead of letting it put you off, you're like, nope, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to
Yeah.
solve this for everyone. So
Yep, that was kind of, I mean, definitely because I started joining like the Facebook groups that Molly was telling me about and just like kind of hearing and I was like, what does whip mean? Like, what the heck? Like, are we whipping something into shape? And then now it like makes perfect sense. But, just all like skiing, I was like, wait, what? Like, just so many things that, make sense now that I know what they mean. But yeah, I really just wanted to make like a little spot that lived on the internet that was accessible and then people as well could see like, oh, she's like me, or oh, she's younger, or what have you, or even not, like just somewhere that people could kind of have a definitive area of the terminology and the different things and just places that were easily accessible, because obviously then with COVID, I mean, a lot of people right away were like, well, my shop's not open. And, just like, I can't get it to you. So that's where I turned to Etsy first. But then I learned about a bunch of the LNSs here in Houston. And
you're lucky you have 5, I think, right?
yes. And so I've gotten to know all the gals. They are literally, y'all are all the sweetest people ever. I like joke, I'm like, I want to own a needlepoint shop just because I want to be able to talk to everyone every day. But I've gotten to know Stitches in Time, Chandal, Chaparral, all of those places. And everyone was just so sweet and always, I would say and kind of start out like, when we could go back in store and set up an appointment or like a call on the phone and it's like, I'm a new needle pointer. Like, can you just kind of break it down for me? And I felt like that really worked. Like it helped because right away I called one that I ordered from and they like started spewing terminology. I was like, hold on a second, like
Yeah.
I'm new. And so then she was so sweet and was like, I'm sorry, let's back up. And so now I know it all and I have all of y'all to thank for it. But I think for sure, like anyone that's new, I always recommend like A, look at my blog posts, but B, don't be afraid to say that you're new and you're just learning it, because we want everyone to feel welcomed, and also that's how the community continues to grow for sure. So my mom talks about how she needle pointed growing up and cross stitched, and I mean I know my grandmother did, but I don't remember it that well. So, it's just kind of one of those things where you pick it up where you go and
Right.
then drop off again or whatever, but I haven't dropped off yet so far. So
Right. Well, and as a shop owner, like I always joke, I'm like, we need a bell. Like, when at the maybe they don't do it anymore because I don't go to bars anymore. Like, haven't for years. But in the old days when I used to go to a bar, when they got a really big tip, they'd ring the bell.
oh yeah, yeah.
And so now I'm like, we need a bell. So when we have a new stitcher, we can ring the bell because that is
Yes, I love
totally worth
that.
celebrating. Like if someone comes in and they're a new stitcher, it's always exciting. If they're a new stitcher and they're in their 20s, we're like beside ourselves with joy
Mhm.
because this isn't going to continue if young
Right.
people don't start. So
Exactly.
that is the most heartwarming thing for me is when we can start a new stitcher.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. And it's been, I mean, I just turned 30, the ripe old age of 30. But it's been cool because people that would have never, have said to me truly, like, I wanted to start needlepointing, my relative XYZ did it, or I just liked what you were doing and I was bored during COVID. And, I don't know how many, but a lot of people have said to me, like, I started doing this because of you, or you introduced me to this, or this shop owner. And it is the coolest feeling. Like, just to know, it makes me realize, like, I don't care about the clothing, all of which I've never really cared about, like people buying what I'm telling them about. I just want to make a difference to people or make them feel better about themselves. And if that's needlepoint is that way and I introduce them to it, then you just made my week, my month, my year. So
So you said you started stitching because COVID was happening and you were kind of ready to take on a new hobby. So
yeah,
have you found like what are your personal favorite things about needlepoint? Like
I think
obviously,
for sure during the COVID time, having something to do with my hands, but also, like something that got me away from the computer, scrolling, watching news, all of that, that we were all so anxious and nervous about. Like, needlepoint has become this like cathartic thing for me that, just the motion of doing something with your hands, going in and out, and just kind of like the mindlessness in a way. Sometimes it's not as mindless because I've realized I need to pick out a couple canvases that only have like one or two threads. So, like when I'm swapping around, it's not as mindless. But for me initially, that was really huge, was just like the anxiety factor of what was happening and what we didn't know was happening. Really, needlepoint kind of helped calm that down for me. Obviously, as we kind of started learning that we weren't all gonna die and stuff, then I became something that was just like, this is so cool, like that I made this, and this item could be something that I could gift a relative. And it seems like I spent a lot of time on it. So for me, that kind of evolved where initially it started with something that still to this day, I pick up one of my canvases for like tampering down my anxiety or getting off my phone. And then, secondarily, I think it's really become kind of a community for me, but also to a way that like I can do something for someone and have an ornament made. I did a Chris Craft Morgan Julia Designs boat, and my dad has always wanted a Chris Craft boat, and I like sent
aw,
it. I got it framed and sent it to him for Father's Day, and was like, "This is the closest you're gonna get from that from me. Sorry," but he loved it, and just like that was one of the he. I felt like he reacted more to that present than like so many gifts that I've thought so hard and long about. And so that's been really cool just to know that like these things have a purpose, but also, can be passed along in our family, the ornaments, the different things, perhaps if we have children doing a stocking, stuff like that. It's just, needlepoint has just become really special to me because I've realized this is something that I can share with my family down the road.
yeah,
So I guess probably in a way it's become sentimental to me, and important, So I think maybe that's the southern atmosphere that I live in, and knowing like what my grandmother passed to me, and since she's no longer with us, those things are extra important. And so knowing that I can pass that down. is really where needlepoint has kind of it's gone full circle for me.
Nice, nice. Did you, I don't know if you by chance had an opportunity to watch Megan's interview with Tony from Whimsy and Grace, who
Yes.
unfortunately lost her home. And I can't even tell you, like, when you're talking about the sentimentality, how many people have like, I have got to stitch a scissor case, because Tony was talking about how I think she had her mother's or her niece's, or she gave it to her niece or something. But the whole scissor case was such an important part of passing that along. And I have my grandmother's scissor case, and my grandmother didn't do a ton of needlepoint, but I don't know why she has a needlepoint scissor case, but now I have it, and it's like one of the most cherished possessions.
So
And
special.
yeah, and then my first puppy chewed on part of it. So it used to be well, it worked out okay, because now it kind of has this double memory. So, they're shaped like this, and then most of them have two sides that are the same height. And
Yep.
every now and then you see one that has the rounded height and then the flat one. Well, mine was like this. Now it's the one that has the flat one, because that's where
Yeah.
the puppy chewed. So
Hey,
now
but
it's
then
like,
it's a memory too of you look at it and you think of your pup. So
so yeah, my finisher here was able to kind of cut out the bad parts, and that doggy's moved on to doggy heaven. So now I'm like, oh, this was the thing that Morgan chewed on, and this was my
Yeah.
grandmother. So yeah, it's really easy to get very sentimental for sure.
definitely, it really is. So
So what we're going to do when we're done, I will put a link to, I think, the beginner needlepoint guide that
Perfect.
you have in the notes, and people can find your blog. But I know you did a number of other blog posts. You're talking about organizing, which speaks so near and dear to my heart. That was super fun. Do you have any inkling, like, of which of your needlepoint blogs have been more popular than the others, or are they?
yeah, all of them, but the beginner for sure. I think kind of around the holidays, I did a needlepoint specific small business guide. That did really well. I think just, especially again, going back to COVID, I guess that's one positive from this all for me, that I can think back and remember that good part of 2020 picking up needlepoint. But I think it forced a lot of y'all to have to parlay over to an online presence, where it seemed like at the beginning when I first started, a lot of LNSs had websites, but you had to call and order online or order over the phone. And now, to be able to make purchases and stuff, and then see these other small, starting designers on Etsy, and then kind of move over to being represented or what have you. I think that did well. I have so many in the works. Like,
Okay.
it's like as many whips that I have just sitting, like I'll pick one up and then I'll start it. And so I have all these drafts of posts, like large needlepoint canvases, but I did like a Christmas one, 10 beginner canvases that I recommended to designers, and an organizational one, which, like, the organization will forever be like my vice.
Well, and as someone who's stitched just a little bit longer than you, it evolves, like you have your organizational method that works for the level of items you have. And then as you keep stitching, the stash grows.
Right.
And so you need to reevaluate and come up with, you're not even necessarily come up with a new system, but tweak the system to make it work for the expanding threads, or,
Exactly. I know I try really hard to go back and use a lot of the threads that I have. And I've learned through all of this that I guess blue is my favorite color without even knowing it, because I have 8 million different colors of blue. I'm like, don't ever buy a blue again until you finish all of these. But it's been really fun. And then, on the whole other level of the Instagram community, just like so many people that, needlepoint 2020 and all of those hashtags and stuff, finding people. But then, like, I've had posts that have sat in there and ranked in the hashtags for a while, and people have messaged me like, who's the finisher? And, it's posts that I put up, photos that I put up like 6, 7, 8 months ago. And it continues to just blow my mind that, these people are finding me and asking questions. But but also, it's just so cool to be a resource and to know like, oh, okay, I helped someone. Just whether that, and a lot of people now, like, because I post, I'm sitting here looking at some of my whips that I have, but this one I posted, I'm getting close, but the Haines bunny, I posted it the other day and 3 people messaged me and were like, I have this exact Haines, and like, it's a different animal, but it's the same colorway. And they're like, I cannot figure out which blues to use. And so like, I said, hey, here you go. These are the ones I use. And they're like, I've been looking forever. So it's just really cool. And it just blows my mind. But it's fun.
So let's talk about what you're stitching.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell us, what are your favorite things?
So of course the first ones that I ever stitched and finished were the Chris Craft Morgan. So I got a lot of Morgan Julia canvases first because I loved how accessible, just young, and things that were just kind of cheeky as well. So sorry, I'm trying to grab this. But so the Chris Craft boat, I framed and had it sent to my dad, and then I did.
It's actually called the picnic boat.
Is it? Okay.
In case anybody's looking for it, I don't want them looking for the Chris Craft boat. They'll come up dry. I think I actually have it in stock here. So.
You do? Oh, there you go. Okay. Shameless plug.
In Michigan, this is facing the right way. Detroit is right here. So
yes,
and we are right on Lake St. Clair, which connects Lake Huron and Lake Huron and Lake Erie. So
okay.
Going with
I wish I knew more about Michigan. My grandmother was born and raised in Birmingham. I don't know enough about it.
That's about a half hour from me. Super close.
Oh, okay. Well, I have all the reason now to come visit even more now. So to come see.
Yeah, so we're a big boating community, so therefore that's why
it makes sense. Yeah.
In stock. That, and then the one that looks just like the picnic boat but has the tree on it, I think is called Christmas Delivery.
Okay, that one's on my list. So that was important just because I got to do it and gift it to someone. Then I have the chill pill. I had that made into a sunglasses case. And every time I pull it out, it's like a conversation starter. People are like, that is the coolest thing. Where can I get it? And I'm like, I made it.
That's a really great use.
So those are like sentimental, I guess. But right now I have this Kate Dickerson, the Haines bunny. And so I think I'm going to have him finished into like my first standing one. Nice. And then as we discussed, I am a big dog person. And so Sarah of SCT, she made my dog Sadie. So I'm in the process and I'm doing turkey work for her fluff. But I got a little overwhelmed, so I took a step back.
So we have that one that had the little blonde dog on it, and it was hanging on our wall for a while, and I was like, okay, like my rule is like I can't buy something for me right away. Like I let it hang on the wall, and if it stays here long enough, it takes home. I was just about getting to the point. Megan and I had talked about I'm blanking on it. The Needlepoint Club, I think is what they call themselves. Yes. How they had my favorite things, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stitch that dog, and it's the same exact canvas, but it had a little blonde dog in it, just like my little pumpkin. And one of my very sweet customers came in and bought it, like literally the day I was gonna take it home. Okay, guess it wasn't meant to be. I can order it again.
Yeah. So I mean, I think too, just the ones that I've had finished, which were ornaments, and those were all like super special ones to me, but I have a couple big canvases, but I'm a little daunted by them still. So I kind of pick them up as I go and then stop. And I like the small canvases probably, and maybe it's a younger thing, I don't know, but it's like the instant gratification of like a smaller canvas that I can finish it a lot faster. Right. So, and then actually from y'all, I got the Ann Fisher Boyard looking at the Ys, and I need to talk to you about that. We'll talk about that offline because I need it finished. Okay. But now I have I just got from a trunk show, which the trunk shows are like the best thing ever. I'm like, why don't all stores do this? Like that makes it so much easier I'm saying like all stores that aren't even needlepoint stores. Like why don't we all highlight these designers or people and give a little discount to encourage people to buy more. It's like it's the greatest thing.
Yes.
But so I have the clutch as well, kind of waiting
Oh, there you go. That's a big one.
in
That's
the
good though.
shadows. So yeah, so I mean, I can't think of like my favorite, but everyone kind of has a sentimental, whether it was like somewhere that I stitched it or Sadie, obviously, kind of things like that. So it's been fun to kind of just
Yeah. And I think you'll continue to find that, like, for those of us that have stitched for a long time, I can remember like all the eras of life I was in when I stitched something. And
yes,
sometimes like they're not always good eras, but it's still somehow a comforting memory, if that makes sense.
definitely.
It could be like, I've got something that I was working on when my dad was dying, but which is
Hmm.
like you think would be super sad, but I'm like, he saw me working on this,
Right.
so there's still somehow it brings a comfort to you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, for sure. So I think that, I'm still such a newbie and so fresh to it all, and I'm still learning things and, just I feel like I know stuff and I want to share that information. But then when I talk to shop owners or women that have been doing this for so long or learned from their mother who was taught, etc., like I think to myself, okay, well, I still have so much to learn. And I just feel like I'm like a sponge taking it all in.
Well, and that's the beauty of this hobby. I feel like you can keep it as simple as you want to keep it.
Mhm.
People are like, well, I only stitch and basket weave. I'm like, don't apologize for that. Like that,
Yes.
whatever makes you happy. This is supposed to bring all of us joy and comfort and decrease our anxiety and all the
Right.
things. So on whatever that is for you. And I think I've talked about this before on the podcast that when the shutdown happened and I was home by myself, like I finished like 5 things in like the first 3 months, which I don't even know how happened because all I was doing was working because I had no staff. I was like running
Uh-huh.
by myself and I normally have like 13 employees. So, but every second I wasn't here, I was stitching, and each of my projects progressively like were dumbed down. Like the first thing had all these elaborate stitches and fancy threads. And by the fifth one, it was like silk and ivory, all basket weave. Because I
I
just
get
it got
it.
more, the world got more and more stressful. And
Yep.
so you just simplified it. So I think whatever brings you joy in this hobby. And sometimes I want to do something that's really challenging to me. And sometimes I
Mhm.
just want to push and pull and call it a day. So,
Exactly. I know. I had, when you say that, I had someone message me the other day and they're like, well, I've never learned anything more but basket weave. And I said that
right.
exact thing. I was like, if that works for you, that's okay. Like, I bought the Stitches to Go book and I've like read it cover to cover multiple times, but I've literally probably only done 3 stitches out of it. And the only one I feel really confident in is turkey work. So,
Well, that's a big thing. Well, I will tell you
I
too, as a
know.
needlepoint teacher, of course, we don't have classes right now. But in the old days when we had classes, I did not teach people how to basket weave until like they'd come to 5 or 6 lessons. Like
Okay.
I was like big about brick stitch. Brick
Yeah.
stitch is a great first stitch because so many people, which you just don't know. And I'll say to people, well, can you see how the canvas is woven and there's a warp and a weft? And they're like, what? I'm like, okay, let me teach you the brick stitch where you don't have to worry about which is the poles and which are the stairs.
Mhm.
And try to think about those poles and their stairs. And then, it becomes, everyone can see it after a while,
Right.
but
Exactly.
many people can't see it for a while.
I
And I think,
couldn't. And I
yeah,
came from sewing. Like I was frustrated by it when I would watch these YouTube videos and it was like step, pull, all of this. I was like, you have
what are
got
they
to be kidding
talking
me.
about?
What is going on? And so I just would watch it and watch her hand, like just how she was stitching. And I would leave them up on my computer and then be stitching right here and like hit play and do one, hit pause, and then do one. But that's how I taught myself because I couldn't go to a class. I
Right.
mean, I literally just watched YouTube endlessly, and needlepoint.com, were kind of the only ones that had decent videos. Um, Obviously a lot of people have expanded now on that and it's great, but that was it was interesting. Even my husband was like, what are you doing? Like, what is
And this
this?
is supposed to be fun?
Yeah, exactly. Because I was getting stressed out by it. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's just like you can see in my face. Like it's just so it brings me such fond memories already. And I've only been doing it for a little over a year. So
Well, I'll tell you one of my deep, dark truths, and I'm not sure I've admitted this on the podcast before, but I learned to stitch when I was 7 years old, actually in this very building that my
oh my
mom's
God.
friend owned this storefront, and she was a needlepoint teacher. But she was a woman ahead of her time. Like I learned how to do like lazy daisies and
Oh
darning
wow.
stitches and like all these
Yes.
things. So I stitched from when I was 7 off and on until like I was 20, well, off and on until I was 27 and then pretty much on since I was 27.
Okay.
So I came back into an on phase when I was 27 and I was coming to a class again here, like I had left and I went to Tulane and, lived out of state and all those things, came back to my hometown. And I was saying to the teacher, well, there's this big stripe in my canvas and I don't understand why. And she looks at me and she's like, wait, you did all these fancy stitches. She goes, don't you know how to basket weave? And I go, what? I'd never even heard of basket
Oh
weave.
my
Didn't even know what it was.
gosh.
So I had been stitching in Continental, of course, back to your terminology. They all look the same on the top,
Uh-huh.
but on the back, basket weave
Yeah.
and Continental look very different. And Continental is great in small places, but if you're going to do a giant space,
Yep.
it can sometimes cause problems. And I didn't know how to do proper basket weave till I've been
Oh my
stitching
gosh.
for 20 years. So there you go.
Hey,
So
you
you're
learned, you
always
were
learning.
ahead.
That's my
You
point.
learned the more complicated and then went back. I like that. But yeah, I am a big basket weave fan.
Well, it is the most relaxing stitch, and every canvas looks beautiful in basket weave. Like it
Mhm.
can't go wrong.
I couldn't agree more.
Um, so did we talk about the average age and demographic of your readers? Do you know that?
To be honest, it kind of fluctuates. So truly pre-COVID, it was more like I was born in 1990, so more like millennial. I know, I'm sorry.
I graduated from high school in 1985. It makes me feel so
Oh
old.
gosh, I'm sorry. So hey, at least I'm a youngin doing this. But so yeah, definitely kind of the same generation as me. But now kind of post COVID or a year removed, really, it is kind of all over. Like there are people my age, but then I have followers who are like, yeah, I'm an empty nester. Yeah, my kids are all graduated or getting married off. And so I'm kind of all over the board. And that COVID was good for me in terms of, we all had to pivot. We all had to figure out like what to do, whatever business you were in. But I was kind of already fluctuating more from the fashion side of things. If you go back and look at my blog, it was initially very fashion focused and style focused. And I've really moved the pendulum over to much more lifestyle. So cooking, needlepoint, this, home decor, just
The spin
different.
bike. I want the
Yeah.
spin bike, by the way.
Yes. I am obsessed because I wanted a Peloton, but it wasn't happening. And my husband was like, no, we are not buying a $2,000 workout bike. And so did all the research on the Schwinn, guys. Just type in Schwinn IC4 on my blog.
I love
It's
it.
the best. And then I only paid the like $12 a month for the Peloton app. It's the best of both worlds.
To win.
Anywho,
Big win. And then you have more money to spend on needlepoint.
Exactly. Win-win. I know. So, I mean, it's just, pivoting kind of all of that. But really now I would say, yes, the majority of my followers are young, newly married, or, I do have some followers that are out of college, but not married, still kind of living that fun life. Not that being married isn't fun. It's so fun. It's just totally different. But a lot of my moms she has friends who follow me now. And so yeah, it's really just fun because then there were a lot of people that were like, I've been needlepointing forever. It's so cool to see you're doing it. So yeah, I think for sure just everything kind of has changed so much from what's happened in the last year and a half. And people that maybe weren't reading blogs, stopped reading them or never were reading them, they were needed things to do and or wanted to find different outlets or what have you. And so my blog has kind of popped up and gained a following and a readership that maybe it didn't have before.
Nice, nice. So I know you've done a lot of blogs about stitching. Obviously, we've covered that. What do you think is your best advice for a new stitcher?
Like I said earlier, I think not being scared to say that you're new and that you're just starting out or you're learning, because I can just speak from experience that everyone was so welcoming and so kind, and really willing to go that extra mile to help a new stitcher and especially a new stitcher who's young, because countless people, just like you said, countless people were like, oh my goodness, you're young. We need new blood in here, or, for lack of a better phrase. We need new people to carry on this, hobby. So I think for a new stitcher, yeah, don't be scared. Don't be scared to ask. When classes and stuff like that, I mean, I'm in Texas, so we're a little more opened up. And so I know some people are doing some classes and stuff. If those open back up, try to go to those, because just like the community and the people, Molly and I are really good friends outside of Needlepoint, but like I still message her or text her quite often. And like, what do you think about this stitch? What do you think about this? Do I need one more for a finishing border? So it's just like, it's really, don't be afraid, because you will meet people that are amazing. Just the community is so great.
I agree with that for sure. Let's see. Do you have any future plans? I know you said you have kind of some blogs in mind. Anything in particular you want to share with us?
So I shoot with the photographer for all my projects and everything about every 2 weeks. And even I have gotten her into stitching a little bit. So that's cool. But I do kind of have in queue that I just need to finish writing a little more, some recommendations of larger canvases. And then also I have a follow-up to my needlepoint organization, because like we discussed, like it's constantly evolving. So those are the two kind of in queue right now. And then I think I have some other canvases off at a different finisher, because I was like, I just want to test everyone out and kind of see everything and what everyone has to offer, because I know some finishers are more comfortable with, maybe just kind of keeping it simple, and some might want to go a little more jazzy. And so I think ultimately it would be really helpful and beneficial to put together a post about like finishing, because that to me was like a whole other world that I really probably still don't understand very well.
Yeah, Megan and I have tried, as you're probably aware, we do episodes every other time with her and I. And so many of ours have been like, here's different ways you can finish ornaments, and here's different ways you can finish pillows, and because it's all new when you're new. So you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what to ask. You don't know what your options are. So we've been trying to, put some attention on that too.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and they're so helpful, because I looked at y'all's stuff when I was sending off my first batch, and it was so helpful. But then I know too, there's a lot of people my age that are able to do the finishing themselves. I personally haven't launched into that yet. Just I don't have the space to do it, but I would like to do it. So that's kind of on my list, maybe to try to tackle this summer.
Well, you got some sewing background, like you could do your own pillows.
Yeah.
I tried, I actually took Abigail Cecile's class. I don't know if you heard me say that in some other platform, but the number one thing I learned from it is that I will never do it again. So I commend people who want to do their own finishing. I mean, especially right now, the finishers are so inundated, and unfortunately it's a long leg time. And, to have a simple round ornament finished here is $54, which kind of seems like a lot until you sit in a class and you spend 4 hours doing it and you're done and your ornament looks like garbage. then $54 seems kind of cheap.
Yep. My husband, love him to pieces, but he doesn't really get it. Like he's like, I mean, he saw the ornaments and stuff like that, but hopefully he doesn't watch this. But it was, he kind of was like, so where did these come? What's going to happen with these? And I was like, well, they're going to be finished. They're going to turn into something. And then all of a sudden, they appeared on the Christmas tree, and he was like, oh, how much did that cost? And I'm like,
Like, don't ask, dear. There's some things you don't want to
move on. Exactly. So, and that's how I feel. I'm like, my biggest fault probably is that I am a perfectionist, but also know that perfectionism is not attainable. And I'm very hard on myself. Like, I know I would be like you, where that's why I haven't finished my own round ornament, because I'm like, I know that I'm not going to be happy with it. And the $54 or in that range, I'm like, that's worth it to me.
The gals that I work with, I went up to the cottage selling weekend, and I came back and I'd taken it all apart. And they're like, you're insane. I go, I was never going to be happy with that. So I took it apart, sent it off to the finishers. And that's the beauty of, if anyone out there wants to try their own finishing,
Yeah.
I say more power to you. And the good news is you really can't ruin it. You just might have wasted some time and effort if you don't like your end result. So I took it all apart and I gave it to the finishers. No harm, no foul. Like, she's going to be able to make it look beautiful, and it'll be great. And so I tried, and I learned a lot. Like, as a shop owner, theoretically, I knew a lot about finishing. But there's a whole difference between like being able to walk the walk and being able to talk.
I couldn't agree more. I know. I'm gonna leave it to. I mean, I think I could probably do like an inset pillow, just with the sewing background and stuff.
Right.
Like, that doesn't seem complicated to me. But it's, again, just the time factor. Like, I don't have that time right now. So, and the deadlines too. I mean, I just like, to me, it's like, okay, now I'm just going to gather them all. When I get a batch that's ready to go, just send them off. And then it's a fun surprise when they come back however many months later. And I don't even remember. So I'm like, great, that's how it works for me. But yeah, I think circling back, finishing would be so helpful. Just obviously everyone has their deadlines, but even so, like, knowing now how many more people have started it, myself included, and I'm adding to that inundation of finishing, or just, I know everyone's prices are different, but even just kind of talking through like how, Molly's custom blue leather dog collars versus like, just a simple collar that might have a plastic buckle kind of thing, and just those different price points. Because for me, it was like, whoa, just so overwhelming price wise and everything. And then even, a simple circle versus like, I had a ginger jar canvas, and when I initially did it, it was all this like wacky shape. And I was like, oh, well, it's a shape, but now I know that that's going to cost a lot more versus like if I had rounded it out myself, So those are things that I didn't know until recently.
Yeah. Well, then that's a downside. But I try to tell people it really is cheaper than therapy. And I'm a big believer in signing up with therapy, gal or guy, when you need it. But
Me too.
in the meantime, it's totally fair to look at this as like calming your nerves.
It is 100%. Yep. Couldn't agree
There's
more.
I would say your cost per hour is pretty low. So,
yep. Exactly.
Anyway, well, anything else that we want to share? Anything?
Gosh, it went by so fast. I could talk to you forever.
Well, that's the thing, is you get on here and you start talking needlepoint, and it's just always super fun.
I know, it really is. I think, just overall, like I said, wanted to create just kind of an environment, because I started it new and fresh. I just wanted to, like, people were very welcoming, and of course, there are always in anything going to be people that are like, oh, I don't want new people, or, oh, I don't want to share the tricks of the trade. But I think, just I wanted people to know that if I could do it, not knowing not knowing anything about the terminology, all of that. And then here I am, a year and a half later, still doing it. So many of my friends are like, I cannot believe you are still needlepointing. Like, I thought that was going to be like a fad. And it's like, nope, it's not. Even my mom is like, so what's next? Are you going to do a stocking? Like, I'm trying to figure out like things, I don't have kids yet. And I'm like, oh, I see that canvas. I want to, it's just like all it gets my wheels turning, which I love. And it just makes me so excited. And I think just seeing and knowing that what I'm doing is hopefully helping this little community, just putting it on the map just a little bit more and getting one more person interested in it. It's just, that makes me so happy. I love it.
Well, and I don't know if you've heard Megan talk when she bought her shop. I think she's exaggerating a tiny bit, but not completely. When she bought her shop, she'd only ever stitched belts. So,
oh my gosh.
talk about someone who's like, I can do this. So she's definitely a can-do kind of girl. So it's not, as I tell people, it's not rocket science. It's not, surgery. Like, in one hole and out the other. That's really all it is.
It really is. I think more than anything, what gets intimidating is the shapes and the different things. And if you want to, go for a crazy intricate, like go for it, but also too, just kind of starting simple and simple shapes and simple, just 2 or 3 colors, like all those things. I so much believe, I'm still blogging. Who knows how long I will continue to blog, but I just love being able to share and then get feedback from people that like, that really helped me, or, oh my gosh, that was so interesting, I sent it to someone else. Just however, my little footprint of the internet is so small, but to know that I am helping other people and sharing things that I adore, that other people might adore too, that's really what makes me love it.
And I love that you're a lifestyle blogger, and now Needlepoint is a big part of your blog. So that
it is, and I know it's growing, and I think I'm gonna add a needlepoint button at the top of my blog because I like it that much. At this point,
you've done enough. I think you should, for sure. It needs its own special spot in the sky. So
I think so. I think so too. So
well, and I have not said this to you in person before, but I appreciate you mentioning my shop, because that was something to me when I saw your Y pattern file. I'm like, she's talking about me. So that was really kind of fun too. So.
Yes, I know. Whatever I can do, I think just we're all small businesses, and however we can help each other, like, let's do it. Like, we need y'all to survive, because picking out threads on the internet is not possible. Let's just say that right there.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to make sure I think we'll just link directly to your beginner's guide.
Perfect.
Then I'll be able to feed into other places. But I think that's a great place that people can share that beginner guide to some of their friends that maybe have said, I'm toying with starting this, but I'm intimidated.
Yep.
I think you have links to videos, and you have links to charts.
Yep.
And diagrams and everything that really makes it easy. I think most shops have some sort of like beginner kit. I know we do that, and ours also comes with a little beginner guide that's kind of similar. But like I said, I love that you had all the terms lined up. Like, that's just such an obvious thing that sometimes us that are knee deep in it don't see the forest through the trees. So that was great. So, okay, well, thank you. I so appreciate you spending time. If we have
of course.
Watchers, please make sure to hit subscribe here, because that also helps other new stitchers find us, and that will help them find Alex. And her blog is lots of fun when you just need something to cheer your day. It's a great place to be. So.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Great spending time with you, my dear. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.